Hi there. I'm Mike Micklon, the Executive Artistic Director at Johnson Hall right here in beautiful Gardner, Maine. And I'm excited today to bring you a presentation of our Artists in the Schools program. And that is brought to you by great support from the Onion Foundation and E.J. Prescott. And today you are in for a treat because we have the amazing Maine author, Lynn Plourde. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, everybody. I would like to share with you today information about pattern detectives. As an author, I use patterns in my stories, but you need to understand what I mean by pattern detectives. We're going to start with the last word first, detectives. Do you know what a detective does? I'll give you a hint. Detectives look for clues. They solve crimes. They solve mysteries, find missing jewels or missing people. You could be a detective. But I'm tricky. You're not looking for any jewels. You're not looking for any missing people. You're not solving any crimes. You are looking for patterns. Think about what patterns are. Patterns are things that repeat. So let's try a pattern. I'll start it, you keep it going. Let's do another one. Hoogie, boogie, hoogie, boogie. So you can do a pattern, just repeat something. Stories have patterns too. As an author, I'm very aware of that, and I want kid authors to learn about it. Two kinds of patterns. Stories can have word patterns, and I'll draw a speech bubble so that you know that means the words in a story that repeat over and over again. Stories also can have action patterns. And I'll draw a picture of somebody running. You can see why I do not illustrate my books. I only do the words. Actions, what happens in a story can go over and over again. Let me show you an example of that. My question is, did you guys used to be little kids? I bet you were. And when you were little kids, you heard little kids' stories, like the three pigs. Remember the wolf is in that story and the three pigs? Let's look at the word patterns. When the wolf goes to the first piggy's house, he knocks and he's like, says something. I'm giving you a chance to think of it. Little pig, let me in. And then the wolf goes to the second piggy's house. Help me with what he says. Little pig, let me in. He goes to the third piggy's house and uses the same words. Little pig, let me in. That is a word pattern. The words repeated over and over again. It's not just the wolf that's saying things though. The pigs, when the wolf says, little pig, let me in, the pig says something about the chin. See if you can think of it. Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. The second pig says, help me everybody, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. The third pig says, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. That was another word pattern. The words repeat. The wolf comes back in the story and has another word pattern. He says, after, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin, he says something like this. I bet you know it. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Everybody, what does he say at the second piggy's house? I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. What does he say at the third piggy's house? I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Everybody, that is another word pattern. But the pig story also has action patterns in it. When that wolf said, I'll blow your house in, then he did an action. What did he do? He blew in the house. When he gets to the second pig's house, everybody, what does he do? He blew in the house. When he gets to the third pig's house, what does he do? He blew in the house. He didn't knock that one down, but he blew in the house, blew in the house, blew in the house. Those are all action patterns. The action repeats. There's another action pattern in that story. When the wolf blows on the house, the pigs do this. Ah! They run to the next piggy's house, to the next piggy's house. That is another action pattern. Good job. One more action in that story before the wolf ever got in the story. The pigs did something. Think about what they did. The first pig built a house out of straw or hay. The second pig built a house out of sticks. I knew you knew it. The third pig built a house out of bricks. So that was another action pattern. They built a house, built a house, built a house. So stories can have word patterns and action patterns. I'm going to share with you a story that is a super pattern book. It has at least a dozen patterns in it. We're not stopping to find them all, but when you do this tape, you can pause and listen to it and then make a list of all the patterns you find. All right, I'm going to get ready to share my story with you guys. And my book I'm going to read is A Mountain of Mittens. They've got my name on there, Lynn Plourde. I wrote it. I am the author. And Mitch Vane did the picture. She is the illustrator. She lives in Australia on the other side of the world. You guys are going to help me with this book because I'll make it easy. I already have word pattern that you're going to help me with. Put on your favorite mittens. I know it's not mitten season. Put on imaginary mittens. I've got mine, and I'll show you how it will help me. You can help me. Mittens, everybody put one hand up. Mittens, my, oh my, a mountain of mittens piled up high, so it looks like a mountain. Let's practice it. Mittens, mittens, my, oh my, a mountain of mittens piled up high. Every time that comes up in the story, it'll be your job to help me. I have to take my mittens off while I read because it doesn't work to turn pages. It was that time of year again. Don't forget your mittens at school, yelled Molly's parents. Nope, I won't, answered Molly. Molly still had her mittens during morning recess, during lunch recess, and during afternoon recess. But just as she put on her mittens to leave school at the end of the day, she heard a teensy-weensy sneeze. Achoo! There, shivering and quivering in the terrarium, was the class turtle, Myrtle. Achoo, achoo! Oh, bless you, Myrtle Turtle. You must be catching a cold, said Molly. Here, cuddled in my mittens. They'll keep you cozy. After school, Molly's teacher, Mr. Jolly, discovered Molly's mittens, along with a few other mittens. He put them in the lost and found pile and mumbled, "They forgot their mittens." Your part. Mittens, mittens, my, oh my, a mountain of mittens piled up high. And there's their mountain. The next day, Molly's parents velcroed Molly's mittens to her jacket. So did the other kids' parents. Don't forget your mittens at school, yelled Molly's parents. Nope, I won't. No way, answered Molly. Molly still had her mittens during morning recess, during lunch recess, and during afternoon recess. But at the end of the day, Molly and her whole class practiced their winter musical on stage with Miss Holly, the music teacher. Miss Holly played the piano with her fingers and jingled bells with her toes as Molly and all the other teachers, fa la a lot in their winter clothes. They even practice opening and closing the stage curtains and taking a bow. After school, Miss Holly discovered Molly's mittens, along with a few other mittens. She put them in the lost and found pile and mumbled and grumbled. They forgot their mittens. Everyone, mittens, mittens, my, oh my, a mountain of mittens piled up high. It's getting taller. The next day, Molly's parents crocheted her mittens together with a chain of yarn. So did the other kids' parents. Don't forget your mittens at school, yelled Molly's parents. No, I won't. No way, no how, answered Molly. Molly still had her mittens during morning recess, during lunch recess, and during afternoon recess. But just as Molly put on her mittens at the end of the day for the ride home, Mr. Golly's bus went slippery, slide, slush, and slid off the snowy road. Oh, golly, Mr. Golly, said Molly. Don't worry, we'll help you. Molly and the other students used their yarn chains to lasso, yank, and tug the bus back onto the road. After all the students were safely bused home, Mr. Golly discovered Molly's mittens, along with a few other mittens. He put them in the lost and found pile and mumbled and grumbled and rumbled. They forgot their mittens. Help me. Mittens, mittens, my, oh my, a mountain of mittens piled up high. It's getting so tall. The next day, Molly's parents duct taped Molly's mittens to her jacket. So did the other kids' parents. Don't forget your mittens at school, yelled Molly's parents. Nope, I won't. No way. No how. Not me, answered Molly. Molly still had her mittens during morning recess, during lunch recess, and during afternoon recess. But at the end of the day, just as Molly put on her mittens, the principal, Mrs. Foley, called an emergency assembly. Mrs. Foley announced into the microphone, "No one, I repeat, no one will be allowed to leave school today until you all reclaim your mittens from the lost and found pile." Yikes, said Molly. The bus is already waiting. So she dove into the lost and found pile along with a few other students. Grip, stick, stuck. Molly and the other students were duct taped to the mitten pile. Holy mittens, yelled Mrs. Foley. We can't have our students stuck at school overnight. So she hollered, help! Then Mr. Jolly, Miss Holly, Mr. Golly, and Mrs. Foley tussled and tugged to try to free Molly and the other students. Grip, stick, stuck. You guys are going to help me. Make your voices sound like Velcro. They're sticky. Grip, stick, stuck. Good job. They got stuck too. Molly, Mr. Jolly, Miss Holly, Mr. Golly, Mrs. Foley, and more. My, oh my, a mountain of people piled up high. Meanwhile, Molly's parents paced and fretted. Oh, where is Molly? We're worried. She's late. When they called the school and got no answer, they quickly dialed 911. Then Molly's parents raced to school, along with a few other parents, and police officers, and firefighters, and ambulance workers. With special snip-snapping cutting equipment and super-duper teamwork, everyone was freed from the duct tape in no time flat. Hooray, yelled Molly, along with a few other students. Hooray, yelled Molly's parents, along with a few other parents. Everyone high-fived and hurried on home for supper. Everyone, that is, except Mr. Jolly, Miss Holly, Mr. Golly, and Mrs. Foley. They mumbled and grumbled and rumbled and roared. You forgot your mittens. Everyone. Mittens, mittens, my, oh my, a mountain of mittens piled up high. Do a little flourish. Thank you for helping me. I'm going to sneak over and let's see if we can think of a few of the patterns in this book. A word pattern. I think words that repeated where they had them for morning recess and lunch recess and afternoon recess. So the recess words repeated. And other words that repeated? I had you help me with words. Mittens, mittens, my oh my. I'm going to say the mitten part. The mitten words. So those are word patterns. Can you think of any actions? What happened in that story over and over again? See if we can think of a couple. They kept throwing their mittens in the lost and found pile. And what happened to that pile? It got bigger and bigger and bigger. So the pile got bigger and bigger. That was an action pattern. Another action pattern, those parents were sneaky. They didn't want Molly to lose her mittens. They gave her some crochet chain. They gave her some duct tape. So it was the mitten saving tricks. All right, I've given you a good start. You've got 2 under word patterns, 2 under action patterns. I said there's at least a dozen patterns in that Mountain of Mittens book. You could be pattern detectives and try to find them. And I'm going to show you a handout. Your teachers can get this handout so they will be able to have you guys find word patterns and action patterns in other stories you read, not just my books. There's a place for you to put your name and the title of the book that you're reading, and you could make a list of all the word patterns and all the action patterns. And I challenge you, once you find patterns in stories, try to use them when you write. Can your stories have patterns? Some word patterns that repeat, some action patterns. And if you try using patterns in your stories, you will definitely be better authors. So I won't be the only Maine kids book author around here. I'll be looking at all of your books too. Good luck with all of your writing, everybody.